Trade deadline week in baseball. We got 24 hours to go. Simple question. How you feeling? Nervous? Underwhelmed? I bet you Jimmy Stewart's feeling underwhelmed. He's been underwhelmed the whole time. You should feel underwhelmed as a Red Sox fan right now.
I'm getting breadcrumbs, Matt. I'm getting the bare minimum by a franchise that promised me something.
And they have 24 hours to deliver on that promise.
And you believe that they will?
I still do.
They need to make me a believer, as the song says.
I don't have any issues with you feeling that way, Jimmy. I don't. You should feel that way as a Red Sox fan. Like, this should be a prove-it moment. This is a prove-it moment. These next 24 hours for Craig Breslow, Sam Kennedy, John Henry, if he's even involved, and let's be honest, he's not. This is a prove-it moment for this franchise. I've heard that money won't be a problem. Sam Kennedy said that. Without a doubt. Isn't that what he said? Without a doubt. Or
without question.
Without question, we would take on money. Okay. Go out and prove it to me. I've heard Craig Breslow say for weeks, we have too many prospects, we need to move some of them. You have, to a certain extent. And we'll get into the move that was made today with Nick York being traded for a pitcher, but you're not trading anything of real value. Are you going to trade something of real value to make this team better?
As opposed to a prospect who you might lose in the Rule 5 draft.
Yeah, I mean, the Nick York thing, and again, we'll dive into this trade a little bit later on in the program. It was a move that needed to be made in the moment, but it doesn't have anything to do with the 2024 Red Sox. Like, it's interesting in a sense. It is, because you traded an infield prospect for a pitcher, which they need to do. But that doesn't have anything to do with 2024. This moment right now is about 2024. What the Red Sox have done so far, and it's been small, but to me it's good on the margins. It is. But we shouldn't be talking about the margins. This is the Boston Red Sox, as Jimmy just alluded to. We should be talking about significant upgrades. Not, I kind of like that move, for what it is. I kind of like trading a AAA pitcher, AAA hitter for a AAA pitcher. No. This is not what it's about. 24 hours to go. Simple question. Do you believe? Do you have faith? Do you believe in Craig Breslow? Or do you believe in Sam Kennedy and ownership? 617-779-0985. I'll say this. In fairness to Craig Breslow, I think he wants to get some stuff done. He has shown that he's different from his predecessor. He has moved on from some worthless prospects that are going to amount to nothing. Chaim Bloom would not have done that. That's a start. That's a start. But it's not where you need to be. Because this team needs to be better. They are 2-7 since the break. Rough weekend against the Yankees. Rough week against the Rockies. Rough last weekend against the Dodgers. 2-7 since the break. But to me, that is proof that you should add. You might say this is why you shouldn't add. And I think there's a segment of the fan base out there that still believes that. I certainly hope that ownership and the front office don't believe that. But I think there's some of you out there who would say, McCarthy, this last week is proof that they're not as good as they showed in the first half of the year, and you shouldn't add. That's it. They're done. It's cooked. It's over. It's a bad week. This is who they truly are. Don't add. I don't believe that one bit. I do not believe that one bit. Because the bad start to the second half, to me, was a direct result of their biggest issues, which we have talked about for weeks. The bullpen is a massive problem. Massive issue right now. No Martin, no Slayton. Jansen, in two big moments, has let you down, which, by the way, I would say is consistently who Kenley Jansen has been in the biggest moments of his career. That's neither here nor there, but he hasn't been good enough in the last week and a half. Your starters are getting worn down. We knew that was going to happen. We knew that they couldn't hit left-handed pitching, which has showed up again over the course of the last week and a half. We have been talking about these issues for weeks, and it finally caught up to them. It did. But they're only one game out of a playoff spot. One game out of a playoff spot, 24 hours until the trading deadline. For the Boston Red Sox, that should be automatic. You should be in. You should be addressing those issues. Craig Breslow said he's going to address them. He started. I'll give him some credit. He's made some decent moves on the margin. James Paxton, I'm fine with it. Danny Jansen, I think, is actually an upgrade over Reese McGuire, but this is not about the Danny Jansens of the world. This is about adding somebody who can impact your team on a daily basis or every 5 days as a starting pitcher or every night out of the bullpen. That's what this is about. If you address those issues that have shown up over the last week and a half, that have shown up in the first half or the second half of the season so far, if you address those issues, I believe it. I believe it strongly. This team should make the playoffs. I think they will make the playoffs. Nothing so far about this second half has scared me off. Maybe it scared you off. I certainly hope it hasn't scared off ownership or the front office, but I'm not scared off. I knew these issues existed before the All-Star break. I knew they had bullpen problems with Martin and Slayton hurt. I knew they had problems in their starting rotation with innings starting to pile up. I know they don't have impact right-handed hitters. I know that. And they've known it too. So we're about to find out if they're serious about addressing it or not. We're about to find out, Jimmy, if I took the cheese. I've been taking the cheese for weeks on Breslow. I've been taking the cheese for weeks on this group, thinking that they're actually going to improve this team. And they have ever so slightly. But that's not enough. It's not enough for the Boston Red Sox. You want two good signs entering these final 24 hours? I'll give them to you. Craig Breslow has shown a willingness to trade some prospects. And I use the term prospects loosely. Nick York, not really a prospect. Fringe prospect, middling prospect. The guys they traded for Jansen, nothing. Couple of infielders in your top 25, guys who would never play a single inning for the Boston Red Sox, given the state of the franchise right now, given how many infielders they have in the major leagues and in the minor leagues right now. He has shown a willingness to trade some excess. So maybe he's not as attached to these guys as his predecessor was. He certainly is not as attached to these guys as Chaim Bloom was. That's a good thing. Will that result in him making a big deal between now and 6 o'clock tomorrow night? I'm not convinced, but at least it's a start. I'll also say that a guy that I thought the Red Sox were going to be interested in, Justin Turner, went today for kind of nothing. Justin Turner went to the Seattle Mariners, a team, by the way, that you are directly competing with for a playoff spot, who have been very aggressive in trying to get better. Turner went there a couple hours ago for basically nothing. The Red Sox could have done that trade, and they chose not to. That would indicate to me, I'm hoping, that they have a better right-handed hitter lined up. Turner hasn't had a good year. They've already shown that they can deal with Toronto, that they're willing to give up garbage prospects for, a fringe role guy in Jansen, and they weren't willing to do that for Turner. That would indicate to me that maybe they have another right-handed hitter lined up between now and the next 24 hours. So there's a sign. And also this from Ken Rosenthal before we get to you at 617-779-0985. Rosenthal writing, at least 10 teams continue to have some level of interest in starters. He lists among those 10 teams the Boston Red Sox. Here's the problem, though. It's 10 teams. And are you going to be willing to outbid 9 of them? I think I know Stu's answer. Or are they going to be willing to outbid 9 other teams for one more starting pitcher? I hope they will be.
They have the ability to.
They sure do. And they have a general manager who's shown at least a willingness to move on from some middling prospects. Will this be different? I still lean towards yes. We'll see if I'm offering a mea culpa tomorrow night. 617-779-0985. Ray and Revere to lead us off today. Hey, Ray.
Yeah, listen, I think you will be given a mea culpa tomorrow, and not because you're not right and they shouldn't add right here, but I look at this from the owner's perspective. A guy who's disconnected, not paying attention, and I don't think this season looks all that different to him than the two before it. They made pushes in June. They looked like a potential team, and they did nothing for them, and they faded. And I think the strategy from day one is you can't touch any of these premier prospects. You don't want to bring them up early and start the clock on their service time. So fundamentally, I just think this has always been a bridge year, and the team surprised us. And I can't see where they're going to deal any of these top 5, 100 prospects or take on significant payroll. I mean, they got a lot of underperforming contracts as it is. unfortunately, guys, I think that's the way it's going. Thank you.
I hope you're wrong, Ray. I hope you're wrong. I don't fault you for feeling that way one bit, though. The Red Sox have not exactly given you any reason to believe. The only thing that I'm holding on to, Ray, is that Breslow has sounded different than Bloom and has already acted differently than Bloom when it comes to, again, some of these prospects. You think Chaim Bloom would have walked in here today and traded Nick York? His precious Nick York? Not a chance. Not a chance he would have done that. You think Chaim Bloom would have traded for a backup catcher because he feels he's a slight upgrade over Reese McGuire to help the big league team? Nope, he wouldn't have done that. So, again, there are moves on the margins. Do they move the needle? No. Should they make you believe all that much more as a Red Sox fan? No. Is it good enough? No. But is it a little different? Is it a little different than what you've gotten in years past? I would argue yes. And that is the only thing that I am holding on to as a Red Sox fan that makes me feel that the next 24 hours are going to be different. That they're actually going to significantly address their needs for the present and not the future. 617-779-0985. Dean in Shrewsbury. Hey, Dean.
Hey, James Paxton, I think, is going to be a disaster. His traditional stats look good, but his ERA is boosted by his unsustainably low extra base hits against him, and his Ks are down and his walks are up and his whip is up a ton. So I think his ERA in LA was a little fluky, and he might be around 5.25 or 5.5 for us, and he might be a total disaster.
Is that his FIP, Dean? What's his FIP?
I don't know what his FIP is.
I like his real stats. His real stats, he has a 4.43 ERA this year, and he's 8-2. Has he overachieved a little bit? Yeah, probably. Is James Paxton a big league pitcher? Yes. So they've added a big league pitcher. Is it good enough? No. Do I want them to trade for Jamison Taillon or Chris Bassett? Yes, of course I do. Have they improved in the last week in their starting rotation? Yes, a little bit. Again, it's on the margins. It makes them better, and I don't know if on the margins is good enough. Frankly, I don't think it's good enough. But I'm not going to criticize the Red Sox for bringing in James Paxton. Would you rather have James Paxton or bullpen days? Would you rather have James Paxton or Cooper Criswell? See, the previous regime probably would have gone with bullpen days because, this team isn't really worth investing in. Man, the bar is low. I mean, if I'm celebrating the Red Sox bringing in James Paxton, what does that say about the bar and the standards that they've set around here? It's an upgrade, though. It's an upgrade, but it's not good enough. That's what these next 24 hours about. Not good enough. Should this last week scare you off? Alex Cora responded to that, had his answer to that. We'll play that. We'll get to your calls. We'll also break down this Nick York trade, which I do think is interesting in a number of senses. It's a bigger picture move, but there is a major takeaway that you should have as a Red Sox fan that we'll get to. 617-779-0985. 24 hours to go. It's McCarthy in from Az on the Baseball Hour.
Stay tuned for more of the baseball.
They should have been much better than 2-7 over this last 9-game stretch. Think about the games they should have won. 1 or 2 in Los Angeles. Certainly the extra inning game in Colorado. You should have won Saturday night if Cedar Rafaela doesn't get picked off, if Tyler O'Neill can track a fly ball. There's some things that went against them. Their bullpen's a disaster right now because they're missing 2 of their top 3 guys. Situationally bad in the last week. I don't think it's indicative of who they are. To me, it's proof of how much you should add by tomorrow, not proof that you shouldn't add. What do you make of it? It's McCarthy in from Az, 617-779-0985. Bob in Londonderry. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how are you? Enjoy the show.
Thanks, man.
I always respect your opinion. You guys, you're the authority. But I'm just a regular fan. I'm not really into baseball that much. But, boy, if you're really a diehard Red Sox fan, in my own opinion, do not hold your breath in the next couple of days. I don't think the cavalry, there's no help coming. At best, even what you're doing now, if the people you're getting are so good, why are they available? There's got to be, an underlying thing. And this is how baseball goes. But I'm just saying, in my opinion, give it another couple of weeks, and I think you're going to see reality. And I'm not sure it's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, Bob, I think a lot of Red Sox fans feel that way. And how could you not after the last 2 years with the way they've approached these trading deadlines? Hell, I mean, even 3 years ago in 2021 at the trading deadline, they traded for Kyle Schwarber, who's an impact major league player, no doubt about that. But he was hurt, and they needed a first baseman. And they said, well, he's not going to be here for 3 weeks, and I guess maybe we'll try to teach him how to play first base if he's healthy enough to do it. I mean, so even that deadline was half-assed. And you just have to say how much of this is ownership and how much of it was the former general manager. And it's my hope that ownership has woken up to it at least partially. And they're going to let Craig Breslow, who keeps coming out and saying that he wants to add, and there are, issues with the team, the way they're structured organizationally because they've got too many hitters and they need more pitchers. And, we need to add a right-handed bat. Like Breslow said all these things in the last few weeks. Does he actually have the authority to go out and add? That's the real question. I know how Jimmy Stewart feels about it. I don't feel that Craig Breslow has any authority, and it's all Sam Kennedy because Sam Kennedy runs the Red Sox. I think partially he does. The question is Sam Kennedy going to be willing to get out of the way enough and let Breslow go out and improve this team? I'm not convinced. You shouldn't be convinced. You should be very leery of the way they're going to approach these next 24 hours. I can just only hope that Breslow's comments about wanting to improve this team ring true in the next 24 hours and they give him enough authority to do so. 617-779-0985. But yeah, I'm starting to worry too. I've been saying for weeks I'm pretty confident that they're going to add, and they have added on the margins. And those margins, they've been decent moves. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. They still need to get better. Bill in Texas. Hey, Bill.
Hey, if y'all are staring at the league right now, it's pretty wide open. And someone's going to steal a championship this year. And why not the Sox? You look at what the Cardinals did today, picking up Kochek and Tommy Pham. Mm-hmm. If that came to the Sox, we're winners. Jack Flaherty is still out there. So we got a chance. We don't need Skubal. We don't need Crochet. We don't need $1 million. Tristan Casas is going to be back. But if you play smart ball like Dombrowski's playing right now in Philadelphia, there's an October run in this. So let's add some good quality guys. We don't have to break the bank.
Bill, I agree. I don't think they're that far off. The difference between being the sixth best team in the American League and being the best is pretty minuscule. It's been proven in recent years. Arizona went to the World Series last year. I don't think they were all that good. Philadelphia, 6th seed, went to the World Series 2 years ago. I think they were better than Arizona. Certainly better than Arizona. But baseball has become kind of a, you get in, you don't know what's going to happen type of sport. They've opened it up. To your point, it's wide open. Baseball is wide open. Baseball has more parity than just about any other sport at this point, outside of probably the Stanley Cup playoffs. Baseball has more parity than certainly basketball and probably football at this point. If you get in, you've got a chance. which is why I've been pounding the table for weeks that they need to add. And I think Craig Breslow feels the same way, based on the comments that he's made, based on talking about how he wants to add, and this team has proven that they're worthy of an addition and all that stuff. Took him a little while to get there, but I think he's gotten there. But he hasn't done enough. He has not done enough. In these next 24 hours, he needs to do more. Needs a starting pitcher still. Jamison Taillon is a guy I'd look at. Needs a right-handed bat. Brent Rooker from the A's, guy I'd look at. Rich in Millbury. Hey, Rich.
How are you?
What's going on, man?
Hey, I think if Red Sox are playing tonight, if a lot of fans don't show up, that might send a message to the management. Do something, you're going to have an empty ballpark.
Rich, fans didn't show up for the first part of the year. Fans haven't shown up for the last 2 years by Red Sox standards, by Fenway Park standards. It hasn't changed their mindset. Hasn't changed their approach. So I think if you're expecting that, you're kidding yourself. Big series. Big series for the Red Sox starting tonight. Mariners are only a half game back. Nick Pivetta on the mound against Logan Gilbert. Big one. We'll get into it a little bit later on in the program. Jack in Manchester with a thought from this weekend. Hey, Jack.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me on, Guy. Ultimately, I just wanted to touch on a couple things about the Yankees series this weekend. First off, what an awesome series. Had a blast watching it. But, and I'm a Cora guy here as well. A couple of things, though, on Cora. How much of these last 9 games can you blame on the coaching? I mean, you think about the pop fly in left field. You had Tyler O'Neill out there who can't play the outfield very well. You think about Rafael at third base where someone's in la-la land, third base coach there. And you also think about the way they pitched to Aaron Judge this weekend. I think a lot of teams have been trying to avoid Aaron Judge, and instead we just went right after him and he killed us. So I just wanted your thoughts on the coaching these last 9 games. How much can we blame Cora?
Yeah, I mean, who's Cora supposed to go to face Aaron Judge when he doesn't have Martin and he doesn't have Slayton? It kept having to go back to Zach Kelly. That didn't work. He went to Weissert. That didn't work. They tried pitching around him. I mean, there were a couple 4-pitch walks to Judge over the weekend. That didn't work because then Austin Wells found a way to kill you at times. Listen, because Tyler O'Neill can't catch a fly ball that he should have caught, is that Alex Cora's fault? I don't think so. I think Cora's gotten more out of this team than you possibly could have expected. Now, do you want to draw a correlation between Cora's contract extension coming down and Cora getting comfortable and maybe the team getting comfortable? Guess maybe you could do that. I mean, the team likes Cora. Maybe they were fighting for him earlier on this year. You could maybe say that. But I don't put this weekend on Alex Cora. I don't. The bullpen's been a real problem, but what are you supposed to do when Zach Kelly's your setup guy? I mean, how many times can you go to Cam Boozer before he eventually hurts you? And he's been good. I mean, Greg Weissert was pitching in that game last night. Criswell came in. These guys are not these guys are not impact relievers. You're down your 2 impact relievers. So here's where I'll give Craig Breslow some criticism. I've kind of been in a wait and see mode with Breslow. They should have had bullpen help a week ago. He should have been more aggressive in fixing this bullpen. If he had gone out and gotten a setup guy a week ago, instead of being 2-7 in your last 9, are you 4-5? Probably. If you miss the playoffs by a game or 2, look back at this week. Look back at this week and say they weren't aggressive enough. This team needed help, and he didn't get him enough help fast enough. That'll be a legitimate discussion. Assuming we're even talking about them getting help at all, which I'm still holding out hope. 23 and a half hours to go. I'm still holding out hope. Am I an idiot, Jimmy, for holding out hope?
In this case, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll see if I'm offering my apology tomorrow. I have it typed out and ready to go. I have my apology to you, Stu. Stu, I've been telling you for weeks that Breslow's going to do something because he's different than Chaim Bloom. And I've seen all these signs and why he's different than Bloom, and I still make those arguments that he's different than Bloom. The move made today, the Nick York trade today, Chaim Bloom would not have made that. But I've looked at that as a sign that he's going to approach this deadline differently in a significant way.
Why? Because he traded an uncontrollable player for a controllable player.
I frankly don't think Bloom would have traded one of his precious prospects. And York was his guy, his first guy. This is his firstborn. That was his first draft pick. I don't think he would have done that.
But Von Grisham wouldn't have been here if Bloom was still here, right?
No, because Bloom would not have been
So
creative
Nick York
enough.
might have been on the Major League roster.
Right. Because Bloom wouldn't have been creative enough to try and get Sale's contract off the roster. Yep. That's a second guess. The Von Grissom thing, second guess. It's certainly not a second guess getting Chris Sale the hell out of town. Even though he's had a borderline Cy Young campaign this year, I don't think he would have done that here. I think you had to get rid of him. I think you had to find a way to move on. The player you got, not good enough. And that's on Craig Breslow. And this trade deadline will not be good enough if this is all it is. And I will come in tomorrow, Jimmy, and I will rip him. I promise you that. I will rip him if they do not improve this team in the next 24 hours.
I look forward to that commentary.
617-779-0985. And I look forward to your apology to me tomorrow when the Red Sox do something. Chips on the table. All right. Majori's got your head. Does Majori have headlines? He does.
He's prepped for it.
Oh, how about that? Majori has your headlines. I do need to talk about the Nick York trade and what this should mean to you as a Red Sox fan. We'll do that next.
14th pick of the 2020 MLB draft, the Boston Red Sox select Nicholas York, a second baseman from Archbishop Mitty High School, San Jose, California.
This is a surprise, folks. Nicholas York ranked 139 by MLB.com, number 96 by Baseball America. He's just been drafted 17th overall.
Five seconds after the Red Sox took this guy, people were already crapping on the pick. Nick York, Chaim Bloom's first draft pick, traded today for righty Quinn Priester. McCarthy and Vermaz on the Baseball Hour. I'll give you the quick rundown on Priester if you haven't heard it already. This guy has gotten his face kicked in at the big league level. He's got a 6 ERA. He's been pretty good in the minors. He's 23 years old. He's got a 3.20 ERA in AAA, so he's just a guy that hasn't figured out how to pitch at the big league level. A lot of guys never figure it out. He might be a 4A guy, but there's some potential here. He was a top 70 prospect entering last year, entering the 2023 season by Keith Law. So in the end, it's kind of a nothing deal. But I think it's notable given that this trade of Nick York is kind of the unraveling of what I like to call the big lie. The Red Sox big lie, which is overvaluing your prospects. This deal, which again is a AAA infielder for a AAA pitcher, generated a lot of reaction from Red Sox fans today on social media. There is a group of people fired up about Quinn Priester, fired up about this guy. There's also a group of people that didn't want Nick York to go. There's also a group of people that wanted more for Nick York. How did you not get more for this guy? This is Nick York, who, by the way, was at Winter Weekend. You remember this, Jimmy? Nick York was at Winter Weekend this January in a conversation with the Red Sox top prospects. It was him, Marcelo Meyer, Kyle Teal, and Roman Anthony. They kind of put him out there as a core four. 6 months later, Nick York is traded for a AAA pitcher with a career 6 ERA in limited time.
At least said pitchers pitched in the big leagues. Nick York couldn't crack the big league roster.
Everybody is missing the mark on this one. Everybody. I like this deal. I do. This is the type of trade that Craig Breslow should be making. Now, it's not the number one type of trade that Craig Breslow should be making. Craig Breslow should be improving the big league roster for 2024 right now. But he should be making some bats for arms deals, even if it's just a prospect swap. And frankly, it might be aggressive to call both Priester and York true prospects because I think they're both kind of middling guys. They were both first-round picks with some potential, and I wouldn't say that either of them look like they're going to be anything elite. Again, kind of a nothing deal, but that doesn't mean that I don't like the deal because I do. Essentially, what the Red Sox are trying to do here is they're trying to get something out of a pitcher with potential, and you traded away a guy who you were going to lose in the Rule 5 draft anyway. Like, it makes sense for what it is in the moment. It's not enough. It's not, the number one trade the Red Sox should be making right now, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be making those trades. But in the end, you ended up trading Nick York, who was one of the faces of your rebuild, for somebody straight up. And chances are neither of those guys are going to turn into anything. And I think too many people out there expected Nick York to be something. What you learned today is that Nick York did not have a lot of value. He didn't. Despite for years being told that your prospects have value. Nick York has value. They put him up there with Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, and Kyle Teal at the Fan Fest. They sold you on this guy, and they sold you a bill of goods on the prospects in general. Because for years, you have been told that these prospects are precious and they're special. And Nick York was one of the faces of that movement. Chaim Bloom's first draft pick. And as a result, the organization, and in some ways the fans, overvalued him for years. He kind of became a name that you knew, and some of you became attached to the idea that Nick York was something. I mean, Chaim Bloom certainly did. And in the end, he was worth nothing. Or something close to nothing.
No, Matt. What I was seeing on social media today was You got a pitcher who you can control for the next 6 years. That's what you got out of this deal. And controllable talent, even if they suck at the big league level, is greater than whatever Nick York could have given you on the major league level.
So I agree with all of that.
That's horrible, though. You trade one of your, quote, top prospects for a guy you can control?
Jimmy.
Like, neat. What if he sucks?
Jimmy, Nick York was never that guy. You were sold a bill of goods.
I'm just looking at a 310 batting average this year, almost 900 OPS, BBS, whatever that is. Like, I'm looking at good numbers here in Worcester.
And he was never going to play here because in the end, he wasn't all that special. And in the end, he was worth a pitcher with a career 6 ERA who has gotten his face kicked in at the big league level. That's what Nick York was worth. And here's the thing. I agree with the trade. The Red Sox should be trading hitting prospects for pitching prospects. You should be making one-for-one swaps because you have no pitchers anywhere in the organization and you have a whole bunch of hitters who aren't going to play anywhere. Whether or not Nick York is hitting 310 in Worcester is basically irrelevant because he's not going to play anywhere. Where's Nick York going to play next year, Jimmy? Where's that going to happen?
I mean, I would assume second base. Oh, wait. They have a second baseman.
Correct. Whether that's Trevor Story or Marcelo Meyer, yeah, they have a second baseman. Well, he's seen some time in left field, but oh, wait, you have Jaron Duran and Roman Anthony and Cedon Rafaela, and you're going to want to bring a right-hander back, whether that's O'Neill or somebody else. Oh, okay, so he's not going to play there.
What about DH?
Oh, wait, you have Masataka Yoshida. He's signed for the next 3 years at $18 million per. So you're not going to do that. Here's the thing. You had to trade him, and you got a flyer for him, which is ultimately what most of these prospects are. In the end, Nick York, one of the faces of the rebuild, was basically worth nothing. He was worth a pitcher with some potential and a 6 ERA and limited big league appearances. Hoarding your prospects gets you nowhere, folks. It gets you nowhere. Because in the end, you get to a point where they are knocking on the door of the big leagues and you know they're not going to play for you and they're not worth what they were worth a year before or 2 years before. You want Nick York's ranking history according to Sox prospects? This year he is the 12th ranked prospect in the Red Sox system, which got you a flyer of a pitcher. 2021, Jimmy, 3rd. 2022, 3rd. 2023, 5th. What if you traded this guy 2 years ago? Would you have gotten something more for him? Of course he would have. More potential, younger, minor leagues, more projectable. You don't quite know what he is yet. And that's your job. It's your job to determine who is something and who isn't something. And the guys who aren't something, as we're kind of figuring out that Nick York probably isn't anything, those guys need to go. And you don't just hold on to them until they're worth half of what they were worth before. That's not how you run a successful organization. This is the Red Sox big lie that you've been told for years. And I think Jimmy was just buying into it. It's like, wait a minute, wasn't this guy one of the faces of the rebuild? Yeah, he was, but that doesn't mean he's good. The big lie is that all of these guys are special and they're worth something. All of your prospects are, you can't move on from that guy. You need to hold on to them. You were fed that for years. And I think Red Sox fans need to get out of that mentality. Some of you do. By the time Bloom was gone, it was too late to get anything of value for Nick York. Breslow came in, and again, this is where I'm saying that Breslow is different. He's different than Bloom. Breslow came in, did not have an attachment to Nick York, and said, I'm going to flip this guy for a scratch ticket pitcher. That's basically what it is. But it was too late to get anything of significance for him. Been fed so many lies about some of these prospects. This is the truth. What you see today is the truth. That ultimately, the majority of these guys aren't worth all that much. What if you traded him 2 years ago? When he was the 3rd-ranked prospect in your system. Could you have gotten a little bit more? Yeah, you probably could have. But that would have involved a baseball decision in the moment. It's the difference between a good general manager and a bad general manager. The good ones don't hoard prospects. The good ones say, this is the prospect I'm keeping, this is the prospect I'm getting rid of. And I would make the same argument when it comes to the big three as we approach the deadline tomorrow. Anthony, Meyer, Teal. Are all three of them going to be great big leaguers? The math, the analytics would tell you no on that. Why is it all of a sudden that these general managers, Chaim Bloom was so analytically driven? Why is it that he was so unwilling to follow the math on this one and trade a third of your prospects, knowing that, well, in the end, 2/3 of them probably don't work out? Can we send an equation?
Because the real math is the payroll implications of it, the budget. Because if all three of them come up, that's minimum salaries until they really need that big contract.
Yep. Jimmy, I think you're onto it.
That's the real math.
Right. Now, there's a baseball decision that can be made. Hey, we have too many hitters. I'm going to trade for a cost-controlled pitcher. Because what the Red Sox did was they traded a cost-controlled hitter for a cost-controlled pitcher. So here's the thing. Like, you can do that. You can still build a good baseball team, even if you're not spending what you should be spending. And I think we'd all agree that the Red Sox are not spending what they should be spending on this baseball team. But I will not excuse Craig Breslow tomorrow night at 6 o'clock if there are no trades that have been made. I won't come in here, Jimmy, and say, well, what'd you want the guy to do? They clearly weren't willing to spend more money.
And the prices for trades there was just too much.
I hate that argument.
I mean, they wanted 6 prospects for Crochet.
Yep.
You can't do that.
Well, you know what? You just traded 3 prospects for a backup catcher. By the way, none of them are going to play a single inning for you. So I heard that one 2 days ago when they made that trade, or yesterday, 2 days ago when they traded for Jansen. Oh my God, how can you trade 2 top 25 prospects for Danny Jansen? How can you do that? Well, let me tell you something. Had you ever heard of Edison Paulino before? Had you ever heard of Cutter Coffee before?
Oh, he's a utility guy.
Yes, in single A, right? Single A.
Sure.
Batting .238 in single A. Greenville. He's your 28th prospect. So what, we're not going to trade that for a backup catcher? Like, come on, really, folks? You've become too obsessed with these rankings. The same way that there's a group of you that became too obsessed with the idea of Nick York. Well, now we know what Nick York is worth. A scratch ticket pitcher. That's what he was worth. Face of the rebuild, though. In some ways, one of the faces of it. This is where the rebuild's gotten you. When you hoard these prospects, eventually they become worth less than you think. Most of them do. The good GMs can figure out who's actually worth something. See if Breslow's going to do that over the course of the next 24 hours. 617-779-0985. A very interesting, if you like baseball nerd stuff, I've got something for you that you don't want to miss next. We'll do it on the Baseball Hour. It's McCarthy in from Az.
This is the Baseball.
I did read this from Chris Cotillo yesterday, and if you're like a real baseball nerd geek, I don't know, this is the type of stuff that kind of only happens in baseball, and I like. Interesting little tidbit, interesting little note. So the Red Sox acquired Danny Jansen from the Blue Jays. Jimmy, do you remember that the Red Sox have a suspended game against the Blue Jays that's going to be resumed later in August? Do you remember this from earlier in the year?
Oh, I saw this. This is good.
Yes. Danny Jansen was the starting catcher for the Blue Jays. The suspended game is getting picked up where it was left off when the rain came through. I forget what inning it was. Danny Jansen was not only on the Blue Jays for that game, he was the guy at bat. And it's an 0-1 count on him. And he will be playing for the Red Sox and the Blue Jays in the same game. Which is, I don't know when the last time that happened in baseball. It must have happened before. But there's a cool little, just a little baseball thing. This only happens in this weird, quirky sport where it turns out the guy who's at plate, at bat, when they pick the game up, no longer plays for that team. He plays for the other team. Which, could he actually finish that at bat? I don't think he could. To have him go change uniforms. What would they call that in wrestling, Stu? A heel turn?
It'd be a heel turn. Or in this case, I'm sorry, I forget. Games at Fenway Park, right?
Yes, it is.
So if he goes from a Blue Jays uniform to a Red Sox uniform, he'd be turning face for the hometown crowd.
Correct. All right, so that's how the wrestling people would call that. Little interesting thing. So he is at bat against Cutter Crawford. He has an 0-1 count, and he could actually be catching Cutter Crawford or somebody in that situation. A little interesting baseball thing. All right, Jimmy, I'm going to go home.
That was worth the tease.
Thank you. And I knew you'd like that, Jimmy. Just being a baseball guy, this only happens in baseball. Suspended game. Danny Jansen, when the game resumes, is at bat for the Toronto Blue Jays, and he will be playing for the Boston Red Sox on August 26th. Jimmy, I'm going to go home, and I'm going to start typing up my apology when the Red Sox do nothing, which I've been saying for weeks. They're going to do something, and it's going to be kind of significant. I bought into Craig Breslow. I bought into all of this. Would you like the apology directed to you or the people, Jimmy?
Me personally.
Okay, I'll direct it to you personally, and I'll also make sure that the people get their apology as well. Joe Murray's coming up next. Talk to you tomorrow night. Trade deadline night on the Baseball Hour. Talk to you then. See ya.